Yeah, so in a sense, you can start for all the 4 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Vivian, and good evening, everyone. Um, just give me a moment. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen so that we can start. Yeah. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
You can see your team.
Okay. Thank you, Vivian, and good evening, everyone, once again, and thank you for joining to this bootcamp. So, by way of
Yeah.
introduction, my name is okay. By way of introduction, or do you want to say anything before I start, Vivian?
No, no, no.
Okay, that's
You
fine.
can
Thank
see.
you. So, by way of introduction, my name is Innocent Ndomi, and I'm a security engineer. Um, so today we'll be looking at common cyber attacks. Just give me a moment. Let me set up my view the way that's I can see it easily. Okay, so today we'll be looking at common cybersecurity attacks. So basically, today's session is going to be more of theory, more of talking and asking questions. It's going to be a conversation class. You can always indicate if you have question at any time. Either use the chat button, or you can just do a reaction, or you can even stop me at any point and ask your questions. But I believe at a certain point, I will be stopping to ask if you have any question. I'll check the chat box or whatever so that we can proceed uh, that way. So today we'll be looking at common cybersecurity attacks. Majorly we'll be focusing on four major common cybersecurity attacks, which is phishing, malware, brute force, man-in-the-middle attacks. So the expectation is that at the end of today's class, you should be able to um, define these terms. When they say phishing, you understand what they mean. What they say brute force, you know what they mean, man in the middle, and understand how these attacks happen and the preventive measures to these common attacks. So that's what we'll be doing today. Okay, so I've talked about what the expectation of today's class is. So first, let's even discuss what are cyber attacks generally. What do we understand when they say cyber attack? What does it mean? Hope you can hear me clearly. Um, Vivian, can you respond? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, you can hear it clearly.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So when they say cyber attack, what exactly do we mean? What does cyber attack means? So cyber attack are just a word to say any deliberate attempt by individual, group of organization, or group of people, maybe as a person, me, any attempt I make to exploit a system, maybe a network, an application, a system generally, any attempt I make to exploit them by exploitation to take advantage of any loophole that exists in that network or in that computer or an application to achieve certain aim, either to steal data, that to steal the data, or to disrupt their service, or to even gain unauthorized access. Any attempt I make to exploit any of the loophole that exists in that environment to just take advantage, to do any of these things, either to steal their data, to disrupt their services, or to gain unauthorized access is what they call, generally, is what they just call cyber attacks. There are different forms which we'll be looking at at the as the session progresses. So, phishing is the first one we'll be looking at. When they say phishing, what do we mean? When they say phishing, what exactly does phishing mean? But before we look at that, statistics has it that phishing remains the primary entry point for data breaches. This is according to IBM 2025 data, last year's data. So phishing is that's to show how common phishing is. And then it's something all of us have been susceptible to at one point or the other. By this, I mean you might have experienced phishing attack or attempt in some point. By the time we look at the different phishing attempts, you understand why I said that at some point, some of us have had encounter, have had experience of phishing. So phishing is just an engineering, social engineering attack where an attacker impersonates trusted entity to trick users to revealing sensitive information. So what that means is any form of attempt to trick you to performing to trick a legitimate user to perform certain action that you are not supposed to perform or disclose certain information that you are not supposed to disclose is called phishing. And there are several forms of phishing attempts. So there's what they call email phishing, there's what they call spear phishing, there's what they call wheeling, there's what they call smishing, there's what they call phishing. All of them, there are different terms they use to describe phishing attempt. But generally, phishing is an attempt, a social engineering attempt or attack, where an attacker impersonates trusted entity. It can be an individual trying to impersonate an individual, to trick the other person on the other end to get sensitive information or to get them to do certain things. That is what phishing generally is. So how does this really occur? How does it work? So first, like I said, there are different forms. There's what they call email phishing. There's what they call spear phishing. There's what they call phishing and smishing. There are different forms. There are different names to describe all of these kind of phishing attempts. So first, looking at the slide, we see that, like I said, phishing is the easiest way of entry or trying to get breach any organization. Then business phishing increases by the day, 94%. Record has statistics that 94%, the proportion of business experience phishing attempts continues to climb annually. As of 2025, that's 94% of organizations have experienced this, and it continues to grow by the day. And that's malware growth trend. So malware grows 30% exponentially. What that means is does anybody want to speak? I can hear myself back.
No.
Okay. So that's fine. So as I was saying, malware grew significantly over the years. The statistic has it that last year there's an increase in malware growth by over 30%. So let's now look at the different types or different forms of phishing. Like I mentioned, as I was talking, I gave some instances, some common examples of common names that they use to describe phishing. But generally, I've described what phishing is. So there's what they call spear phishing. Spear phishing is highly targeted custom message. What that means, before you do spear phishing, you might have a privileged information about the entity if you're performing spear phishing to an entity or a person. So it's highly customized. What that means is you have prior knowledge of that particular person or an entity. That's where you're able to customize that message in a way that it captivates or the person is able to fall victim for that kind of phishing attempts. So the word spear just means that you're narrowing down your phishing to a target where you have some level of privileged information about that particular individual or entity. Why whaling? When they say whaling, whaling just means specifically targeting high-profile individuals, executives like the CEOs and the big shots in the organization, in an organization or in the society at large. That's what whaling means. So there's what they call phishing. Phishing just means using voice and presence. At some point or the other, some of us have had this encounter where someone calls you and said your cousin or your uncle is hospitalized. They need some money to deposit to start treatment and all of those things. This is what they call phishing. When they call you, you just voice anything that has to do with voice call. is what they call phishing. So before I forget, it's also important that you know that usually, whether no matter the form of phishing attack you're getting, usually there are indicators what shows that this might likely be a phishing attempt. One is that it usually requires you to perform certain action. Two, it can also always sound urgent. When somebody calls you without proper introduction, you're just standing urgent, maybe shouting, your cousin. You might not even know the name of your cousin, just want you to say, is it your cousin? Which of them? Is it the one that lives here? Somebody standing so urgent. So these are the ways you can easily identify these phishing attempts. So there's what is also called smishing. Smishing is when they use SMS, when they usually, we've gotten it a lot. I've gotten a number of email SMS like this, where they will just craft an SMS and say, do this, so do so and so thing. They will send account number and or say you've won so and so thing to claim it, press this code or do this. All of those things that come in form of SMS, that's what they call smishing. So, like I said, there are different names, but just try to get used to them. This is a course where you just get used to the terms, to the general terms they use in these attempts, in these phishing attempts or general cyber attack attempts. So the next one we're going to talk about is squashing. Squashing is just another word for when they use QR codes accounts, when they say scan a QR code, do this, do that. So there are different terms, like I said. All of these terms still point to phishing. Most likely, you're going to see ING at the end of all of the different phishing types. So there are different ways it works. I've explained the terms. I've explained how it works. But email is the same thing as similar to SMS. Email is usually for corporate organizations where they target certain organizations and they craft email targets to them and send to them to do this or to perform certain actions, just to steal certain data or to get encrypted, just to encrypt their data or just to have some level of escalated privilege access. That's just the general summary of phishing attempts. So having talked about that, I said that there are two major impacts or two major um, concern or targets whenever they are doing a phishing attempt. Is either to steal your credential or your data or to probably steal some level of money or something. So usually either for financial gain or to just get access to data, information that are not supposed to get access. So, and also identity theft. Sometimes they use this to just impersonate people, high profile people, to just get people to perform certain things, thinking that the entity or that particular individual is the one asking them to do that. So how do we now prevent all of this type of attempts, all this type of phishing attempt, be it smishing, be it phishing, be it squashing, whichever type of phishing attempts? How do you prevent them? First is user awareness. There's this saying that your your organization is as strong as your weakest link. What that means is human being is usually the entry point for all of these attacks. So first is user awareness. For people who work in organization, usually they set up training, cybersecurity awareness training for them. And also for individuals, even if you're not in any corporate organization, awareness is one of the ways to curb all of these excesses. What you don't know, you might not be able to avoid. So first is user awareness. Then for the corporate organizations, they use what they call email filtering for their emails. So not every email is allowed to pass through. Some will go into spam. Then maybe the organization admin will not look at it and know if this is legit, just scrutinize it and know the ones he will allow into the organization and the one that he will decline. So for organizations, they set up what they call email filtering. There are different technology to that, not to bore us with so much technical terms that we will now be able to digest. So one of the ways we prevent it is first, basically, is cybersecurity awareness, information. telling people that this exists and this is how you know this and this is how to avoid it. Secondly, is all for corporate organizations is email filtering. And also even individuals, we also do what they call multi-factor authentication. For your applications, we're conversant with our mobile apps for our banking applications. Also for organizations, you work with organizations, all the applications they use for the internal processes, they have usually set up MFA for them, multi-factor authentication. So what that does is before you log in, you're required to provide password. And after password, also you also required to provide maybe what you have, maybe a token, generate a token from a hardware and you put that token, or maybe you answer some certain questions. So, but this is not the subject of the discussion, but MFA generally is just a combination of two of the three authentication factors. There are different factors, three different factors, what you know, what you have, and what you are. So by MFA, I mean combining any two of them. That means you multi, or MFA is also called 2FA. 2FA is using two, MFA is using more than one anyways. So 2FA is a type of MFA. Anyways, just for clarity. So MFA is that thing you do by the time you're logging into your mobile application, be it your banking app, after you've put in your password and your username, you're now required to put in token. For some of us who have hard token we collected from the banks, you just input that hard token, that code that is generated from that hard token. So it's also a way to curb some of these SSs. Hope you can still hear me. Are we still together?
Yes.
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 Okay, that's fine. So, like I said, at any point, if you have question, you can just ask me, or you can just indicate in the chat box, or just do a reaction. I will stop and take your questions. Okay. Okay. So, just a moment. Need to say this word. Okay, the next one we'll talk about is malware. When we say malware, what do we mean? I know when I've heard it in one word or the other, maybe when we're reading books of interaction, I don't know the level of where the level we are in cybersecurity. But for definition purposes, malware is a combination of two words.
Malicious software.
Yeah, malicious software. So what that means is any software that is malicious, designed to damage, disrupt, or to gain unauthorized access. So that's just what malware is. And there are different forms or different ways these malwares come, or different types, so to speak, of malware. There's what they call the virus. There are worms, there are trojans, there are ransomware, there are spywares, and the adwares. That one we're used to that, we're conversant with that. Maybe on your YouTube or any of these platforms, you suddenly pop up some ads just pop up. That's what they call adware, and all of that. So there are different forms of these malwares, but the essence of what they tend to achieve, all of them is still pointing to one thing, to either steal your data or to even gain unauthorized access. That's the endpoint. That's where they are driving at. So for the different types, like I said, ransomware is when they encrypt your data. For instance, now, I don't know if you've heard some stories in news. There are different organizations or individuals where you discover that you have a particular document in your folder or in your file. You're trying to access it at some point. You're unable to see it. You're now required to pay certain sum of money ransom to get it, or they publish it, especially for organizations who deal with sensitive data, sensitive customer data. So sometimes they are being attacked. So in a way that those data are being encrypted. So they will now require them to pay certain amount of money for that data to be decrypted. So by encryption, I mean they are covered, they are masked in a way they do not have access to it anymore. You understand? So to decrypt it is to give them back access, to regain access to that particular information or data. So that is just what that is. How do they propagate? How do they spread all this malware? Usually in corporate organizations, sometimes once you get an email, sometimes they will say, click this link, scan this QR code, download this attachment. Terms like that, you have to scrutinize whatever you're downloading or whatever you're clicking, the links you're clicking or the attachments you're downloading. You don't just download anything you see online. So, like I said, whenever an email or a call is requesting you to perform an activity or sounding a bit urgent, you have to know that you have to be careful to scrutinize it to understand whether this is legitimate or not. So, like I said, usually it comes in a way of attachments, require you to click this link or to download certain things. So by the time you download, you already attacked. So sometimes they have already have unauthorized access to your system without you knowing that. And at the end of the day, you lose your data and your system is compromised entirely. There are situations where they take over your system. You can see somebody performing action. As I am like this, looking at my system, somebody else is pressing something. I'm not the one pressing. I will just see my cursor moving. They've just taken over your system. So this is another form of cyber attacks. How do you now prevent things like this kind of malware, malicious software? How do you prevent them? For even as an individual, we are common or conversant with this word antivirus. Yes, malicious software, malwares have grown beyond antivirus, being able to just hop them or check them. So antivirus is good, it's the basics. So it's one of the ways you prevent these things, antivirus, not just the open source antivirus that we see, because those ones have limitation, but it's also good. And it's not having it at all. Just getting that is a step forward. So antivirus is one of the ways you can hop all of these things. Then also what they call EDR. EDR is an endpoint detection and response tool. What that does is similar to antivirus, but this is some kind of, it does more. Let me use the word, it does more. It gives you an opportunity for those of us who have worked in our who have seen an EDR solution. You do more with an EDR. You automate certain processes. It gives you opportunity to respond. You do more with EDR. But our antivirus is just install the agent. It has already pre-configured intelligence that it used to work. But for EDR, you perform more actions. So for entities, for corporate organizations, they don't just go for antivirus, they go for EDR because EDR gives them wider coverage and they have a console where they can be able to even manage their devices and perform actions. For financial organizations, for instance, they use things like EDR. That's where they are able to now make some policies to say people don't plug USB, on their devices. If you plug it, you'll not be able to do anything. You cannot be able to transfer or receive file to that USB. So EDR is a step ahead of the antivirus, regular antivirus that we know. Also, things like regular patching. Some of all these softwares we use, not some of them, all of the software we use, they deploy patches from time to time. What patches does? Patches come with, when a software is developed, over time, by default, attackers are also finding a way to bypass that process or that particular software. So patches comes with regular updates that will not allow an attacker to identify or be able to bypass all of those processes. So that's why regular updates of the softwares you're running or the softwares you're using is important. So it's another way to cop this kind of attack. So this is just statistics showing ransomware and credential exploitation over the years. So the first one shows that global ransom hits as its 236.1 million. So that the total ransom attack recorded globally in the first half of the 2022 alone. This is the data I could get from my research when I preparing for this session. So has hit this particular figure. So also the data explanation rates, that the percentage of ransomware attacks that now include data theft to pressure victims has increased to 94% over the years. So any questions so far? Let me be sure I'm not speaking to myself. Any questions so far? Any question?
No, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
No, boss.
Thank you. Just a moment. Okay, thank you. So like I said, today class is going to be more of interaction. So at any point you have any question, you can ask me. It's going to be more of talking and talking and talking. There's not so much practical to talk about, to do here, but we can talk about it practically. Maybe you are confused about anything, any term I've mentioned, anything you've seen on the slide, or anything you've come across over the years. You can ask questions, we can discuss it and talk about it. So there are different varieties of or different types of malware. I've talked about that, the worm, the viruses, and all of that. So the difference between worm and viruses and Trojan is that for virus need to be able to have a contact, just like the normal virus that we have it in biology. He has to have a contact with something before he's able to spread. But things like worm can just replicate on its own. So these are just technical terms to differentiate the different types of malware. But generally, just know that malware is a malicious software whose intent is just to disrupt or to just stop or gain unauthorized access. That's just the simple short of what malware is. But however, there are different types of malware. Also know the regular one that we know, that's the adware, where you unsolicited advertisements just come to your page or pop-ups on your whether YouTube or any of these applications you use. So you just suddenly see all of these adverts just coming up. So I've also talked about the Trojan. Trojan is just a software that just comes like it tends to imitate a legitimate software, but by the time you download it, you find that it's not what you're looking for. For those of us who do stuff online, sometimes you're looking for an application to download. You will just see exactly the same thing, a replica of that application, but it's not the real application you were looking for. So these are sometimes might be Trojan. They just come in the form of a legitimate application, but they are not really the application you are looking for. Then I have talked about the different ways you can prevent this. I've talked about EDR. Before talking about EDR, I talked about antivirus, regular antivirus we know. Then I said a step ahead of the antivirus is the EDR. So EDR does more. For the corporate organizations, they use EDR. For the EDR, you can be able to automate processes. You can be able to respond. Even some EDRs, not some, almost all the EDRs I know, you are able to even restore if you've already had an attack already. For instance, you can be able to restore that your system to the former state it were before that attack happened. So these are the ways you can prevent that. The regular patching, I've talked about that. So whenever a patch update is released in any of the applications you're using, that's why you need to follow through and make sure you update your software or your application. So also backups, immutable backups. What backup does is help you to restore to back where you were before that particular attack happened. Say, for instance, you have a ransom, you encounter a ransomware attack, and say they just steal a document and they require you to pay a certain amount to get back the document. If that document, exposing that document does not necessarily cost harm, you might as well just ignore them and get back the document, do a backup and get your document back. If you have a backup of that document or backup of your system before that particular attack. So these are the ways backup is necessary. Technically, also for organizations that host their applications, if they don't take backup, if anything happens to even ordinarily crash, if your system crashes, for instance, for those of us, for those organizations that hosts the application in-house on-prem, if your server crashes, for instance, and there's no backup, you might not be able to restore that server back. So regular backup is necessary, not just for servers, even for our common softwares or even our, not software this time, our own documents, for instance, having a copy of it somewhere to back it up somewhere is also necessary. The zero trust model is designing your system in a way that you don't really make allowance for assumptions. That's just what that means, zero trust, for organizations, what they do for these zero trust is least privilege. You don't give somebody privilege to see or to do or to perform certain actions that he does not need. So you just give certain privileges based on the person's role, what he's able to do, what he needs to do. So that's what he's able to see. So that's just what this is talking about. So The next one we're talking about is brute force attack. Brute force is a common thing that we do. Even some of us have practiced at some point or the other. We might not know exactly what we're doing or what it means. So brute force is just a technical term to describe trying to guess password. Maybe your friend locks his phone. You're trying to guess the password to that phone. What you're doing is just what they call technically in cybersecurity term is a brute force. But brute force has grown beyond manually guessing passwords. These days, you can use a bot or what they call password spray to just guess password. There are different methods, there are different ways to guess password. Just know that when you hear the word brute force or brute force attack, they are referring to guessing of password. And there are different ways password can be guessed. So usually, the ways, like if you want to open an account with maybe an organization or any kind of application you want to log into, or maybe bank now, for instance, you want to open your accounts. There's a banking app now, you want to open an account with them. Usually they will say use strong password, mixture of different characters, alphabets, numbers, and they will give you certain length. It must be up to 12 characters and all of that. This is one of the ways they try to stop or try to prevent brute force attack. So I'm going ahead of myself, but I'm just trying to, when I open a particular slide, I try to just speak to everything that concerns that so that we can just move on. If you have questions, you can ask. So what that does, because I've not moved to the way to prevent it instead of talking of other things about it, but that's fine. So what that does is that if it's very complex, it becomes difficult for an attacker to be able to guess your password right. Also, another way to prevent such attack is not reusing your password. For instance, if I live with you and I know your password to your phone by chance, and it's the same password to your phone you're using for all your mobile apps, you get, and maybe all other sensitive passworded documents is the same password you're using. That has opened you up to a very massive or huge attack. But if the password I'm using to my phone is different from the password I'm using to my mobile application, my financial application, that's my banking app, you find out that if your intent was to just probably log into my mobile app, my banking app, and maybe make some transfer, you find out that it becomes difficult for you. You have unlocked the phone, yes, but you might not be able to use the phone. For some of us that have also locked our password, our WhatsApp, for instance, maybe you just want to see my WhatsApp and know the conversation. You want to just steal a particular information, or you want to see something in my WhatsApp. So by the time you unlock my phone, you now want to check my WhatsApp. You're not able to know my own WhatsApp password, which is different from the password you use in unlocking the phone. You find out that you might be able to stop there. You might not go further than that. So now, not reusing password is a way to prevent all of these kind of attacks. So I've talked about complexity of password. I've talked about not reusing password. Okay. Okay. For the corporate organizations, those that develop applications, the applications that will log in, like our mobile applications and all of that. Another way they also, apart from the ones I talked about as an individual, as a corporate organizations that develop application, what they can also do is also to do what they call account or session lockout. What account lockout does that if you log into an application and you do not perform an activity for certain minutes, it locks you out. It will need you to now enter that particular password to get him back. Also, you can also use MFA, like I talked about when we talked about the previous attack. MFA is also a factor, like I said, it's a form of MFA, anyways, that you log into my phone, for instance. You're not able to get into my password, into my WhatsApp, because the kind of password setting I use is different. It's a form of another level of security. It's not really an MFA anyways, but it's another level of security that I've done. So you don't leave anything to chance. Just being able to tighten up all the loopholes, that is what you could do for preventing such kind of attack. How do we know that such thing is happening in our environment as an entity. Let's say I work for an organization and I work in a cybersecurity department in that organization where I'm privileged to maybe monitor login attempts and stuff like that. So if I'm seeing failed login, let's just say I'm looking at one of our application. I'm just looking at the traffic as it goes. I'm just seeing 120 failed login at a go within the space of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or a particular account. They're trying to access a particular account with 20 different passwords at a time. Come on, that's suspicious. Ordinarily, as an individual, if you have forgotten your password, you want to log into your any of your application and you've forgotten your password. If you try 1, 2, you can't remember. The next thing that will get to your head is to just change password, try to forget password or something. But somebody trying to log on, trying to, this is an indication that something is going on. So this is another way you can also know that something is happening or an attack of this kind is about happening in your organization. This is in an organizational scale now. Somebody working for an organization. I've talked about how you can know this as an individual. So any questions so far? And I would like to also get feedback. If there's anything I've said so far that you did not understand, you can ask questions to be sure that we are together. Any question? Okay, I believe there's no question, but can you hear me? Okay, someone want to
Yes, we
speak?
can hear you.
Okay, that's
Yes,
fine.
sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So let me just quickly move on. So what is the mechanism of brute force attack, apart from the things I'm able to talk offhand to? Just let me now look at the slide, what we have on the slide. So what is the mechanism of attack? Target reconnaissance. This word reconnaissance just means to just look around for the things you can find about your targets. Reconnaissance, just look around to gather any information you can. So for brute force particularly, when we say target reconnaissance, what they mean is gathering usernames or list of password, or if you go to what they call dark web, you can see list of different things, credentials or password that was stolen. So you try to guess it. And if it's a targeted attack, for instance, you are my friend, I know your pet name or your what's it called now, or your birth dates or your birth year or something. Some of us, that's what we use. It's easy for me to guess your password. So reconnaissance talked about just gathering as much information, or maybe user's name you can get, username and password you can get from any kind of source, maybe from previous data breaches and all of that. That's what the first thing they do for an organized crime, an organized attack. That's what they do. So that's the first thing. Then also another thing they can do is also credential spoofing. What that means is leveraging reuse password, like I said, and that's why you don't need to reuse your password across your different assets, different applications. So credential spoofing, leveraging unused password across multiple platforms to gain unauthorized access. And also what they call automated guessing. Automated guessing is when you run scripts or use bots. I think I mentioned that now they can use bots now to perform this kind of attack. It's not part of the course, but it's not part of the study today, but that's just remind me when they talk about using bots. You can use bots to perform what they also call like DOS, denial of service, or distributed denial of service. Bot is using trying to get the right word now to describe what bot means. But we all know what bot means now. Bot is like an AI tool. It's a machine, not really human being. So using bots to perform certain actions. Do you want to speak, Franklin?
No.
Okay, so using script or bots to test thousands of passwords within a short period of time, systematically. So instead of human being trying to guess password bots can guess as many passwords as possible within a twinkle of an eye. So also dictionary matching, trying to test predefined lists to see common phrases against target usernames. We might be moving very fast now. So how do you prevent all of these things from happening? Not just as an individual, but also in an organizational scale. I've talked about them, just like a recap, looking at the slide. I've talked about MFA implementation. We now know what MFA is because it cuts across both this particular brute force and the previous attack we talked about. So strong passphrases, enforcing long for organizations that develop applications. That's why if you're registering an account or opening an account in some organizations or you're doing anything and you're trying to maybe create password, you find out at some point they will say it must be so and so thing. That's password policy. So for organizations developing application, you must have password policy. The password policy has to talk about the complexity of your password. By complexity, I mean how many characters your password will have. And it must be a combination of words, numbers, and special character. So that's what is defined in password policy. So that's another way to also curb this type of attack. Also, system level threat. What they're talking about is account lockout. I've talked about that. Account lockout is different from session lockouts. So what account lockout does is after a failed attempt, for instance, I don't know if any of us have experienced that you try to log into your application, maybe your banking app. You try 2 or 3 times, they lock you out. They say your account has been locked for maybe the next 1 hour before they open it. Or some organizations, you need to call them before they open it, or you visit the bank before they open it. So that's what account lockout does. So after they have tried to log into your account, it's just a checkmate, it's just a way to secure your account for any eventuality. Let's just say an attacker is trying to attack your account and you're not aware. So, and if that your bank is implemented this account lockout, it's a way to safeguard your accounts, even when you're not aware. You're not aware that somebody is trying to log into your banking app. And because the person has failed 2 or 3 times and they locked the person out or lock your account, it's a way to just help secure your account. Another thing is capture, which we all know when you're logging into, we have experienced it in one way or the other. You're logging into applications, they will probably pop up certain words and just cover it and say, if you're not a bot, you should write this. Just write that word before and validate that word before you are now able to log into the application. Sometimes they will present pictures and say, click on the ones that match so and so. They might just use a word or maybe a particular item. And say you should click on the ones that match so and so that item. Click on the ones that match cats, or click on the picture that matches cat or something like that. These are just a way to be sure that this is human, that this is not bots trying to do all of these things. Why this is being done is because some of all these attacks are being performed by the use of bots. So this is just to show that you're human, that this is human being legitimately trying to log into this application, not a bot. This is what this does. So any questions so far? Because as I can say, I think the last one is what we're about to talk about. The last kind of common attack based on the course outline that we're supposed to be treating today. So we're supposed to be talking about 4. I've talked about 3. I've talked about phishing. I've talked about brute force. I've talked about what again? Malware, yes. Then this is man in the middle. So that's the last one we're talking about today. There are so many forms of attacks, but this is this what we're talking about is one of the most common attacks that everybody should have experienced at some point or the other. That does not mean that this is the only attack. There are several thousands or hundreds of cybersecurity attacks, but we're discussing these common ones today. And the last one is the one we're about to talk about, man in the middle. What does it mean? How does it occur? What exactly is man in the middle? So before I go into that one, is there any question so far? Any question, contribution, or discussion before I go into that? Question?
Any question?
Okay. If no question, let me now talk about the last one we'll be talking about today, which is man in the middle. Just a minute. Okay. So for man in the middle, like the name suggests, man in the middle is also called MITM. That's MITM attack. That's a short form of man in the middle. Like the name suggests, what it just means somebody just trying to sit in between a process. Somebody's trying to just put himself in between the two process, maybe between you and the particular process you're trying to run, something like that. That's just what man in the middle means. It's a process, it's a kind of attack when an attacker secretly, without you knowing, secretly just try to intercept or alter the communication between two parties, that's between two process. So there are different ways they do this, there are different terms that they use. They can use terms you have heard of, possibly you've heard of terms like session hijacking or eavesdropping. These are ways they do all of this kind of man in the middle. Just somebody sitting secretly in between two parties. You don't know that somebody is there. It's just man in the middle trying to listen to get something or trying to take over something or trying to just see what he's not supposed to see or assess what he's not supposed to assess, looking for any privilege or any opportunity to do all of that. So I'm just trying as much as I can to just explain it in a way that we can understand. So that is what man in the middle is. This is usually on networks. That's Wi-Fi, like this Wi-Fi. All of us know what Wi-Fi is. And even on application process, maybe you logging into an application. By the time you are logging into an application, you don't know that an attacker is secretly waiting, trying to monitor what you're doing to see if he can have an opportunity to perform something or to do something or take over that process or to maybe steal something. That's just what man in the middle, in a nutshell. That's just what it means. So when you hear things like Wi-Fi eavesdropping, what that means is, especially for open Wi-Fi that is not secured, open Wi-Fi, what it means is that somebody is sitting on that Wi-Fi to see how we can probably listen to the communication going on, or probably try to have access to data in transit, any kind of process or any activity that is happening within that network. That's what that is trying to do. Then session hijacking is when a user is actively trying to access a session, a process, an application. An attacker is secretly waiting, looking for an opportunity, a loophole to just take over the session. That's what they mean by session hijacking. That's exactly what that means. So that happens is that it steals your cookies. That's what they call cookies. Just steal your cookies and try to gain access without those credentials that you're putting in, or those your credentials, because cookies stores all those credentials and all those things you're putting in. So an attacker sitting by the side trying to just see if he can have an opportunity to take advantage of that. Also, there's what they call DNS spoofing. all of these things fall on that man in the middle. There are common terms and common ways, types, man in the middle or com. DNS spoofing, what that means is attacker trying to, he has built a fake website that mimics the legitimate website that you are trying to access. So what it now does is that it sits and see any opportunity to redirect you to that fake website. You will think you're using the real website, but not the real website. It's a fake one that you're trying to use. So that's where you hear them say HTTPS instead of HTTP and all of those things. What that means is HTTPS is the secure layer of that your website where you're sure that an attacker cannot be able to do all of those things. So there are different ways to secure your application from this kind of attacks. So the major aim of this particular attack, like any other one, is to manipulate your data or to just gain privileges that they're not supposed to gain ordinarily, or to also steal credentials. So these are the aim. The aim is either to steal credential, to manipulate data. By the time they have access to data, they're not supposed to have access. They manipulate it, even make your application. If you build an application and it's not properly secured, if an attacker have access to that application, he can manipulate that application database in a way, behaves in a way that it's not supposed to behave. So revealing sensitive information. I've had an experience and a life experience where okay, this is a bit more technical, but let me just say it, where there is no proper parameterization of data on that data, parameterization done in that application, where you make a certain request, what it returns is different. And this is an organization that deals with so much customers' information, sensitive information, not just any other information, sensitive information. So you are now making a request for certain things, if it's returning something else, in that particular instance, this particular instance I'm talking about, I think, it is an insurance company. Yes, it's an insurance company where you're supposed to see only your own insured assets. You're only able to search your, probably search with your ID. Now, in this case, in this scenario, instead of searching with an ID, maybe you just try to search with your surname or maybe your name or something else. It returns a different information of a different customer entirely. So at the back end, there is no proper parameterization of that particular application. So what parameterization does is to narrow down your request and your return, what you send and what you're going to get. This is a bit more technical, but I just want to give you an instance of what we are talking about when we talk about stuff like that. Okay. So this slide is talking about what I've said in the course of the conversation, traffic interception, exploiting unencrypted protocols, HTTP, or compromising network routers to divert traffic. I've talked about this when I was giving an overview of what man in the middle is. I've talked about, like I said, the DNS spoofing. Here we have network spoofing. So what network spoofing does is just spoofing links, an attacker's MAC address to a legitimate IP on the network. Say the same thing with what I said when I was talking about DNS spoofing. So for network spoofing, this one talks about trying to mimic the MAC address to the one you are trying to access, the legitimate one you are trying to access. But this is not the legitimate site. An attacker has already built a different website trying to make that particular one. For network now, which they are now been able to have a MAC address that is equivalent to that of that legitimate IP address of the local network that you're trying to access. Active data modification. I think I've mentioned this when I was also making the explanation. Intercepting or altering data in real time, injecting malicious content or instructions. So by the time they have access to that data, they can alter it or do whatever they want to do. By altering it, like I said, they can alter your database where your database is now beginning to behave in a way that it's not supposed to behave. An attacker can do that. There are several methods, there are several ways these things are being done. So, any questions so far? I think I'm almost done here.
Yeah, there's a question. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You made mention of this thing, DNS spoofing, that is creating a fake website so that it can confuse all your users. And you make mention of HTTPS. So now the question is, can they build fake websites with HTTPS or is it only with HTTP?
And they build a fake website with HTTPS. Largely no, but I can say I will not definitely say no. You know why I say I will not definitely say so? Let me explain. Largely no, you are not, because process of building building a website with HTTPS, that's several things involved. So somebody who is building a fake website will not be able to pass through that process and beginning to make sure that these things have been done. So one of the easiest way is no, I would say no. But for an organized crime, there are situations, instances where an organized crime can, somebody's raising his hand. Okay. Okay, there's a situation where an organized crime.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, when you mean a fake website, as in what kind of website is that?
Okay, you're asking the person that asked the question this time. You're asking me. I don't think that question is
Okay,
for me.
okay. Fake website, just like trying to build a website that resembles the original websites. Not like that is not the original website. You are creating something similar that if users want, like now bank apps or bank sites, you can build similar site that looks like the original bank site, but not the same, not the original site.
Okay, like cloning the site. Yeah, I think for me, I think that's possible to use an HTTPS, and someone can clone the site and use a HTTPS for it.
Yes, I was coming to that. They can, but there must be some little alteration. It cannot be exactly. If you clone a site, there must be the differentiator between the original one and the clone one. So that's why I said in an organized, it depends on the some of all these attacks in levels. It depends on the sophistication of the attacker, whoever is performing the attack. So there are situations just like phishing, for instance, the commonest one that we know. If we have an insider threat, for example, I work with an organization, I have privileged information, I know everything that is happening. It's easy for me to trick. Like I always say, anybody can be tricked, anybody can be phished. It's easy for me to phish my fellow colleagues because I know what's happening, I know what's going on in their organization. So, like you rightly said, the person that contributed. Yes, you can clone, but there must be a differentiator between the clone website and the original website. So, like you said, yes, they can have an application that is built with HTTP, but it's still a fake website. Does that answer your question, Oasis?
Yeah. Yes, that's I've done that. Thank you.
Uh, any other question? Any other contribution or clarification? Okay, any question, any clarification before I begin to round up with summary, recap, and we can somebody's raising his hand. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned something about stealing cookies. So how do attackers steal cookies?
See that I mentioned something about stealing cookies.
Yes, attackers stealing cookies like session, maybe login session.
Okay, if I understand correctly, you're asking how does an attacker steal
Yes,
cookies?
yes, or maybe like a login session, all of that.
Okay. Anyways, there are many ways attackers steal cookies, depending on will I say, the expertise of that attacker, But usually, this is going a bit technical now. Usually, you hear what they call something like precise scripting. Precise scripting is a site that is not properly protected, where it allows you to now maybe run malicious scripts. So there are many really ways, where an attacker can. I'm trying to narrow my explanation down to the way. Okay, let me say cookies are usually put on website. Once that website is built, there's cookies, but it's not supposed to be presented in a plain text to be captured by somebody who is on the session, so an attacker who's on the session. But if that is not properly encrypted, in a way that attacker sees the cookies in plain text, is not able to see your login details, the text you log in. You can able to use it and take over the session and even log in. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So once an attacker is able to intercept the traffic between you and the website and see that in plain text, is able to see that, is able to just take advantage of that and use it to manipulate the process, log in, and do whatever he needs to do. So this is just one way, but there are many ways actually, but this is one way. It depends on the sophistication and the expertise of the attacker anyways. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It
I'm just
answers
looking
the
for.
question in a way that, okay, let me say the information or the sessions are not encrypted. Or maybe the attacker, or let me
Exactly.
say maybe the attacker may do some reverse engineer, or what's it called?
Yes.
To
Let me explain
encrypt.
better. Let me explain better so that I can. Whenever you log into a site and you're putting your username and password, those informations are seen somewhere. The truth is that somebody else have access to that information. That information can be sent, but it's not supposed to be made public to any person, any other person. So somehow, the website or the session has a way of storing those informations you're putting. I don't know if you understand. It has a way of. So once an attacker is able to, in form of cookies, so once an attacker is able to see those things in plain text, it's not supposed to appear in plain text. It's supposed to be encrypted, but encrypted is scattered in a way that it doesn't make sense to anybody that looks at it. So, but if it's not properly done in that way, an attacker can easily see it. Once he sees, he's able to see those things in plain text. He can use it to manipulate the process, maybe log in on your behalf or something. It depends on what he wants to do. I don't know if you heard me of what I said made sense to you.
It makes sense to me. And I think another way again, I see that these attackers can steal these cookies is by maybe you logging into, let me say you log in your Facebook in a public computer,
Wi-Fi.
public PC. Let me not say Wi-Fi. It's not Wi-Fi, like a public, like when you go to the cafe to log in your Facebook. When you go to the cafe, like a cyber cafe, like the Nigerian cyber cafe, where you get you buy time to use a PC, like a computer, a desktop. So logging in your Facebook details and everything. So maybe when you are done, or maybe the time runs out and you are still logged in, maybe the next person that comes that uses that PC, the person can in one way or the other gain access to your
details, your accounts.
details, yes, without logging in, maybe. So something like that.
Yeah, that's another way to also get access to people's information. Like I said, there are many ways. It depends on the sophistication and the opportunity, so to speak, that presents itself. And that's why somehow some of these attacks, and also for we aspiring cybersecurity engineers or cybersecurity professionals, there's no limit to what you can do or what you can know. That's the truth. What you think is the ultimate that you know today, somebody else knows more than that. And I will give you an example. That's why when they talk about patches, you keep asking yourself, why will your organization deploy an application or something after 2 months or after a few months, they say, come and update. What are they updating really? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That's to tell you that there is still something to be done by the day. So what I'm saying is that there is no end to knowledge, there is no end to expertise. It depends on the opportunity that presents itself. So for aspiring cybersecurity professionals, especially people who are going to play within the space of ethical hacking, pen testing, penetration testing, there is no limit to what you can do when you're doing any projects. Usually, you just be open-minded. Yes, there is things you need to check. There are basic things you need to check when you're doing stuff like that, but there's no end to knowledge. You can find out you're going with the mindset, I'm going to check this, check that, but getting there, you'll find out that from checking this, there's something else I can do. From doing this, I can also do this. You get what I'm saying? So that's good. What you said is an example where that's basically carelessness. If you are using a public resource, there is need for you to clear your data, clear your information as you're leaving that resource. And it's also not advisable, if you can, as much as possible, please avoid any public resource. By public resource, I mean things like open Wi-Fi, even cyber cafe. That's why cafe is no longer invoked. And even if you use a cafe for any reason, you try as much as possible to log out both to your Gmail, your email, or your Facebook, or whatever resource you try to access on a public resource. You just try as much as possible to leave no stone unturned, to just try and clear your information. So that's my contribution to that. Thank you very much. What's the name? I'm seeing coordinator. What's the name of the person that made that point?
Collins.
Okay, Collins. Thank you, Collins. Any other contribution?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Lawrence.
Okay, yeah, so concerning this question he asked, I saw something about SQL injection. Is it related to the question, do they use SQL injection to steal like information from your database? And if it's related, what tools or software do they use for SQL injection?
I missed you at some point. I had a call that distracted me. Repeat that
I
question
said,
again, sorry.
yeah, concerning his question, he asked about how do attackers steal cookies from your website.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something about SQL injection. Is it related to how they steal information from your database? And if it is, what tools or software do they use for that SQL injection?
Okay, yes. Thank you for the question. It's related. SQL injection speaks specifically to database, stealing information from database, trying to modify data in database. Why we hear things like cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting is like SQL injection, but this one is on the web application basics. All of them is still stealing data in one way or the other. So when we talk about cross-site scripting, that's when we now talk about things like session hijacking and all of those things. This is occurring at the website level. Why SQL injection is stealing data or modifying data at the database level. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. That's the basic difference. All of them is still the same thing. As for the tools or how it's been done, like I said too, it depends on the opportunity that presents itself, and there's no end to knowledge. So there's no specific, it's not just only this one way, click this. No, it's not just one way that is being done. It depends on what. For instance, like I said, if the data in that database is not properly parameterized, that's the word they use, parameterized. What it means is that there is no proper definition of input and output. Because what it does when we are trying to access information from databases, you ask for this certain information, the database pull that information to you. But if the people that define develop these things, the people that develop this application on database level did not do proper definition of what you're going to ask and what you're going to get. That's parameterization. It becomes susceptible to things like SQL injection. And somebody can now be able to modify things because he's able to have some privilege that he's not supposed to have. He cannot be able to execute codes, to run codes, to execute, to do a different thing from what that database is meant to do. So yes, they are related. SQL injection speaks to database modification of data or database stealing of data. Why cross-site scripting, yes, speaks to the application level of that same stealing of data. So they're just different terms, but all of them are still pointing to the same stealing and modification of data. I don't know if I'm able to give clarity to that. Lawrence. Lawrence, does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. So, any other question? Because this is meant to be an interactive class, like I said, the major thing that I have to discuss with you are these 4 items which I have discussed. So we're about rounding up already. If there's no question, I think I have a few more slides to go, and we can just call it a day. So let me see what I have. Okay. Okay, so I believe there's no question. So I think I can just proceed. So securing communication channel, how do you secure communication channel? Part of the things here are the things I've talked about in the course of the conversation. Universal encryption, like I said, I think I have mentioned, encryption is a way of masking data in a way that it doesn't make sense to somebody who's going to see it. There are different tools they use for encryption. There are different ways to encrypt. So, but basically just know that encryption is a way to ensure that that information is not seen clearly the way it is. And this is done, like you can see on the slide now, ensuring that all sensitive activity utilizes HTTPS, SSL, and TLS protocol for encryption. So that's just what they are saying. Encryption is a way, there are different tools, there are different ways. It's a way of masking or just trying to scramble the information, while especially for data and transcripts. Data that you're moving, sending over the internet, you're moving from one person to one email to you're sending the person an attachment or email or something. So that's a different method, there are different ways actually. When you go deeper, you're talking about the encryption, you hear things like asymmetric, symmetric, these are technical terms, there are different ways. What that means, symmetric, you're talking about using one key, then using encrypting to decrypt. Asymmetric, using a different key that you're using encrypting to decrypt, and all of that using 2 keys. So there are different ways, but this is just speaking about what you can do is what you can do to ensure that your data is safe is by using what they call encryption. Secure infrastructure, deploying security tools and keeping your network device firmware updates regularly, like I talked about those days. All those applications you're using in your environment, make sure they are properly patched, they're updated. Once they deploy new updates, you use them. Then what they call VPN. All of us at some point or other have heard it, especially the time where Twitter was banned in Nigeria. Some persons were still using Twitter. You'll be wondering how they were able to access Twitter when they said, federal government said they banned Twitter. So most of those people, what they use is VPN. What VPN does is to mask your IP address, So sometimes you're now in Nigeria trying to access Twitter and they say they banned in Nigeria, but the IP address is showing it's like somebody in UK. That's why you're able to access it. So VPNs are just a way to mask your own IP. So going by what I have here, VPN, virtual private network, using VPNs on public networks to encrypt traffic and prevent packet interception. So DNS security, implementing DNS over TLS to prevent DNS spoofing and query interception. I think I've talked about that briefly too. So the next thing is attack mitigation reference metrics. This is just showing the different attack vectors or the different type of attack as to discuss today, the phishing, malware, brute force, and man in the middle, the core vulnerability and how you can prevent it, just like a summary of what we've talked about so far. Like I said, we're winding up already. So when we talked about phishing, you remember I said the main target is human being. So that's what this one is saying. The core vulnerability is human error or trust. So that's the core vulnerability here. For the primary preventive control, phishing resistant MFA training. Talked about that when we're talking about phishing. For malware, system vulnerability malicious software is trying to take advantage to manipulate the system. So the core vulnerability is the core targets. Just talking about what it's trying to target is the system. So how do you now prevent it? Talk about patching, backup, EDR, antivirus. It's not here. It's also part of ways to make sure that you prevent malware. Then brute force, that's password guessing in a common term. When you hear brute force, just talk about password guessing. The core vulnerability is weak password. So this is trying to exploit weak password. If your password is not up to standard, it's susceptible to this kind of attack. So how do you now prevent it? Or the primary control to put in place to prevent such things like brute force is by rate limiting and strong password. We talked about that when we were talking about that. Then the man in the middle also unencrypted channels that are open, and how we can prevent it is what you can also see there. HTTPS, VPN, and the rest. So in conclusion, today we've been able to look at the different common cybersecurity attacks. And my expectation is that at least, yeah, you might not be able to get everything, but that's if this is your first time. Because I know some of us are conversant with some of the things I've talked about. At least you should be able to, when they say brute force, you understand what they are talking about. When they use some of all these terms, malware, you should be able to understand it. And also to know that technology is not enough, that we human beings are always a target, for all of these things. And how we can prevent this is by awareness for those in corporate organization, corporate world. Your design, whatever you're doing, both your network, both your application should be secured, should be designed with security in mind, and for both application on individual basis, also having strong authentication, and that's MFAs, things like that is also a way. And continuously zero trust, monitor your processes. For those of them that have processes in place, you check it, because as processes in place, also people are trying to bypass it, both attackers in and out. By in, I mean people inside, that's insider attack. Because when you talk of attack, it's not just only people from outside, it's just like stealing. You say somebody came to rob you. People rob people inside. You will have situations where you live in the same house with the person, you have access to some of your things, and he robs you. You also need somebody from outside that walk into the room to pick up stuff into your house. So also in cybersecurity, we have what they call insider attack or insider threat. These are people who are within, or attacks that started from within. People who have elevated information, elevated knowledge, privileged information about the processes in place, about what's happening in the organization. These are insider attack, and so many things can fuel all of this insider attack. It can be a disgruntled employee who is not happy with the system, whose pay is not treated fairly. It can be some people for just so many reasons that they know. Some are just naturally, for lack of a better word, dubious naturally, and some for fun. It's just like what's it called? It's just like hacking. People hack for fun. Not everybody is. We have different type of hack, or different type of what do I call it now? I'm running out of words. There are different types of attacks. There are people who attack for fun, just to see if it can be done. There are people who do it because they want to get specific information, or maybe for financial gain, So there are different reasons people do what they do. So the same thing when it comes to cybersecurity attack. People perform cybersecurity attack, but basically it's usually for financial gain, or to have access to data that are not supposed to have access, or have some level of privileges for access to certain information that are not supposed to have. So this is just the reason why some of all these things have been performed, or happen on a regular basis. So I think that is the end of the the class today. So in a nutshell, just a moment, I don't know, my screen has disappeared. Okay. What's happening? Okay, just in a nutshell, what he's saying is that we shall have to be vigilant, just try to be security conscious in whatever we do. For the cybersecurity practitioners, which we are, what we try to do by knowing all of these things, this expose is like an expose, giving you an idea. If you're going to be an ethical hacker tomorrow, you need to even understand how these things work, what these things are, before you're able to hack properly. You understand? So this is the reason for this course, to give you an idea of common cybersecurity threats, cybersecurity attacks, how it's performed, and the checks in place, or the preventive or control measures in place, in a nutshell. So that's what I have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating and for listening and your contribution. But before I hand over to Vivian, I don't know if you stay here, let me also give opportunity for any contribution, any question, or any contribution at all before I hand over. Okay. I assume there's no question. Is Vivian still on the call? Okay.
No, Vivian is not on the call.
Okay. But I think you're one of the coordinators or one of the facilitators of this particular session.
Yes,
Am I
I'm
correct?
one of them. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So you're standing in for Vivian. So that's the end of my class. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. So over to you now.
Thank you,
I don't know
boss.
if you
Thank you,
have
thank you,
anything.
thank you.
Innocent, before you leave, sorry.
Yes.
If you have an assignment, you can drop it on the group chat so they can all see it.
Okay, that's fine. I will circle back to you. But for now, there's no immediate assignment currently as we speak on this call. So I will get back to you if I have any assignment for them. They will get it.
All right. Thank you, Innocent.
Okay, thank you so much.
And thank you all for participating on the session. Please, if you have any question for Innocent, you can ask now, or let's just end this session now. I think there's no session, so we can all leave this session now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you, Innocent.
You're welcome.